Hello and welcome to this InflectraCON 2023 virtual bonus session. InflectraCON will be held from April 19th through the 21st in Washington, D.C. on the campus of Gallaudet University. We are looking forward to 3 days of customer training, partner meetings, industry sessions, networking, and more. Check us out at www.inflectracon.com. In this session, we hear from Rachel Cook, founder at Lead Above Noise. Let's get started with this virtual bonus session entitled, How to Lead Through Uncertainty and Change.
Hi there, I'm Rachel Cook, and thank you so much for joining me in today's presentation on leading through uncertainty and change. You know, they say the cardinal rule of public speaking is never start by introducing yourself. So today, let me begin by introducing myself. And no, not to be a rebel, but really because I feel like the rules of the road have changed a little bit. In this season that we're in of so much uncertainty and chaos, and who knows what's coming next, I think our time and our attention are the greatest gifts that we can offer anybody. And before you offer me the gift of yours, I just think you have a right to know who is talking to you from this side of the screen. And so very quickly, I am, as advertised, Rachel Cook. I run Lead Above Noise, and we speak, train, and consult to help companies retain, engage, and develop their talent. I also host the Modern Mentor podcast, which you can find wherever you get your podcasts. And I deliver weekly, quick, actionable tips, helping you to both define and achieve your own version of workplace success. I studied both human development and organizational psychology, so I get people and businesses and how they fit together. And I bring not only a wealth of experience, but a lot of academics behind my point of view. And finally, on a personal front, I love family, I love fitness, and I mostly love the Golden Girls. I think they taught me almost everything that I know, and I think most of life's mysteries can be solved by just watching an episode or two. That is just a little bit about me, but let's go ahead and jump into why you showed up today. So, change, uncertainty. Why are we talking about this now? Is there anybody watching this who can think of, I don't know, any change or any moments of uncertainty you've experienced in recent years? I am clearly being a little ridiculous and a little rhetorical, because the truth of it is, in these past few years, most of us have experienced very little that doesn't fall into one or both of these categories, right? These past few years have really taken everything we thought we knew about the world and flipped it upside down. You know, back in the beginning of 2020, overnight, everything we thought we knew about work, how we work, when we work, where we work, suddenly changed, and everything became completely uncertain. Playbooks got pulled out from under our feet like rugs, and overnight, we were left to figure out, how do we lead through change and uncertainty that we were not planning for at all? But the thing that's really interesting about this moment for me is that change is nothing new, right? Since the dawn of time, humans have had to navigate change, right? If you think about our human history, can you imagine a world in which Thomas Edison had never thought, hey guys, it's a little dark in here. I think we should change that. Can you imagine a world in which Henry Ford had never been like, hey guys, my horse, she seems a little slow and a little tired. I think we need to do something to change that. Or if Steve Jobs hadn't said, hey, I'm really trying to squeeze this giant Mac computer into my back pocket and it's not working. I think we should change that. Now, of course, these are 3 examples of the bazillions from which I could have chosen. But the truth of it is, Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, Steve Jobs are 3 of countless humans who have led us through significant change over the years, and we welcomed it. Change is not anything new. But there's something tremendously different about all of the change that we are navigating right now. There is a critical ingredient that's missing, And what's missing is the element of choice. Suddenly today, we are navigating through change upon change upon change, many of which we didn't choose. And the truth about change is that it's exhausting. It's always been exhausting. The human spirit likes consistency. We like predictability. We like knowing what's coming next. We like running in an even straight line. And change is exhausting. What you're looking at here is what's known as the change curve, and it's meant to represent the actual experience that we all go through when we navigate a change, any change, even a change that we've chosen, even a change that we're excited about. If you think about some of the big changes you've experienced in your lives, even the changes you've chosen with enthusiasm, you'll notice that you probably went through some version of this curve. Think about maybe when you chose to go to college, or you chose to get married, or you chose to become a parent. One of these changes may have been something you chose with enthusiasm and with excitement, but if you reflect back on your experience, you may have decided to go to college and you are so excited to leave home and find yourself and make new friends and choose your classes. But wait, all of a sudden you realize, well, what happens if I am not successful, if I don't find my people, if I'm struggling in classes? And maybe you have a little bit of, now I'm here and now I'm lonely and I'm homesick and I miss my cat and I miss my bed. And wait, this is fun. Wait, I'm doing it. I did a class. I'm doing well. I found my people and now it's time to graduate. Right. And there is this very normal human experience of highs and lows when it comes to navigating through change. This curve that you see is normal. It is nothing to apologize for. It is nothing to fix. It is simply something we need to understand about the human experience of change. But when we are talking about change upon change upon change, almost none of which we have chosen, we are really feeling it. There is research that shows that since the beginning of 2020, we have fully lost 50% of our ability to cope with change. 50%. That's 50% of our ability to persevere, to keep on keeping on, to just pick ourselves up and keep on running. We're 50% slower, we're 50% more exhausted. And that is really catching up with us. I want to share my story of what it felt like when the pandemic struck and everything I knew kind of changed overnight. And this is admittedly a little bit light, but it's really just meant to represent and remind you of how much significant change we experienced in an unbelievably short window of time. This is me in February 2020. It's one of the last keynote talks that I gave before the world turned inward. I've been running my business since 2014. So in this photo, I'm 6 years down a path of having built a business on relying on being in person with other human beings. Whether I was on a stage, at the front of a conference room, sitting shoulder to shoulder with a leader, everything that I knew how to do, it lead above noise, relied on being in person, on reading the energy of a room, on making eye contact, watching body language, listening to the conversations in the corners. Everything I knew about being expert in my field was built upon an assumption that I would be with people in person. And here's me in June of 2020, recording an episode of the Modern Mentor podcast from my now home recording studio on a day when my dog felt that she had a valuable point of view to offer. This is up here because it is admittedly a little bit ridiculous, but it's a tremendous representation of what a change took place over such a short amount of time. And I invite you to reflect on this, to imagine your before and after photos. And yours may not be silly. Yours might have been scared or anxious or tragic. And I don't mean to poke any fun at anybody's experience of the before and after in early 2020. What I do want to call your attention to is the importance of just acknowledging how much has changed and how much we've already figured out and how much all that we've achieved so far is going to serve us as we move forward from here. I've been working with leaders and organizations for decades now on leading through change. And the truth of it is, before 2020, leading through change always started with a vision. When a leader had a clear vision and could articulate that vision, everything else about leading through change fell naturally in line. But today, friends, it is time for a refresh because there's a new question we need to answer. And that is, how do you lead a change that you didn't choose? And that is what we are going to talk about today. We've all done this, whether we realized it or not, whether we were being intentional or not. We've all led ourselves and our teams through significant change in these past few years. And I think we've learned a lot that we don't even recognize we learned. And what I'm going to share with you today are the 4 Ps that I believe are the foundations, the pillars of leading through change and uncertainty. And here's what we're going to double click into in the rest of our time. The first P is people. And that is because, remember, we are all exhausted. We are down 50% of our capacity, and one cannot pour from an empty cup. And so before we talk about leading through change, the first thing we have to do is reinvest in the human spirit, in human fortitude. We need to get everybody back up as close to 100% as possible before we can do anything strategic. The second P is a promise. And the promise fills the hole that used to be where our vision sat. When it came to articulating a vision, we had a really clear destination. We've made a choice, and now we are leading a change towards it. But when we're talking about uncertainty, we may not always have a clear vision. We may not always know exactly the destination, but we absolutely can make a promise about the direction that we're heading in, who we're going to be no matter what. The third P is a plan. We used to have playbooks. Back in the day, leading through change meant articulating a vision and then following the playbook. But when you don't have a playbook, because in the realm of uncertainty, who really does? What you need instead is a plan. And a plan is really a means of reflecting on and capturing the significant amounts of wisdom that's sitting just behind us. And we're going to talk today about how we really collect and harness that. The fourth P is pulse. And that is because we are figuring things out as we go. We don't know the rules. We don't know all the steps. And so we have to have a means of staying really engaged in the process and making sure that we are fixing and adjusting and changing and shifting and tweaking as we go. And so how do you lead through change and uncertainty? You lean on your people, your promise, your plan, and your pulse. And we're going to take a bit of a deep dive into each of these 4 elements. So let's go ahead. So once again, we begin with our people because this is a team effort and we need to know that the team is okay. And you, leaders, are part of the team. You are part of the people. This is about reinvesting in ourselves, in our care and our kindness and our empathy for ourselves and each other, our teams, our colleagues, our peers, our partners, our clients. Question number 1 is really, is everybody okay? And so here are some of the questions I invite you to ask and answer for yourself and with those around you. How are you doing? I don't mean this politely or conversationally. I mean this in a very reflective, introspective kind of way. How are you doing? How's your energy? How's your anxiety? How's your readiness? How's your optimism? All of those things matter. If they are not at or near 100%, it's time to acknowledge we're never going to deliver our best work and our best ideas. From there, what do you need? And there are no right or wrong answers here. We all need different things, and we have to start normalizing the practice of asking for and receiving help. And help can come in many different forms. And finally, who can you support? We need to ask, we need to receive, and we need to role model and practice and be an active participant in the realm of giving and receiving help. Now, if you think about your past couple of years, can you reflect on some moments where you either took or maybe missed an opportunity to have these sorts of conversations? I know for me, in the earliest days of the pandemic, when things changed overnight and suddenly I and my team had to figure out how we were going to do everything differently, we had to begin with just a check in on humanity. Personally, I am a working mom. I suddenly was running my business from home. I was Zoom schooling my children. My husband was working from home, and I was dealing with chaos and overwhelm. I had another team member who doesn't have kids but has elder parents and had a whole different set of anxieties and pressure sitting on her shoulders. I also have a much younger team member who was living in an apartment in the city by himself, and his battle, his cross to bear was loneliness and isolation and fear of just not having people around him. And so in the very beginning of things, we all needed different things. And it felt uncomfortable to ask because it was a professional setting. But we just started having these quick check-ins. How are you? What do you need? Who can I support? Who can you support? And we started asking each other, not just for what you might think of as help, but we started getting better at asking for advice, asking for connection, asking for a few minutes of time off, asking for a phone call instead of a Zoom call. Sometimes it was asking about, can we do a brainstorm? Because I just feel like I need to do something creative. Can we start a book club? Can we share recommendations of our favorite Netflix shows? We focused on the importance of our spirits. We started to rebuild our stores of energy, and it put us in a much better place. When we were originally trying to just figure out how to keep the train on the tracks, keep the clients happy, go, 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 without first attending to the needs of our human spirits, we were quickly burning out. We were uncreative. We were arguing. Nothing was attractive. But as we started to build in these practices and these rituals around talking about our needs, ensuring that they were getting met and supporting each other in that, it absolutely helped us to tap back into our creativity, our perseverance, our excitement, and our engagement. All of this will help you as leaders and as team members in moving successfully through change and uncertainty. So start with your people. The second P is promise. Because, like I said, in the olden days, leading through change began with a vision. We are doing this organizational change. We are implementing this new technology. We are redesigning our product suite. And here's why, and here's what it's going to look like. Back in the day when we were choosing a change, we had those answers. Nowadays, quite often, we don't. We don't know exactly what we're doing or exactly where we're heading. And when we don't have a clear destination that we are able to articulate, what we do have instead is the ability to promise. And this is really about truth and authenticity. It's about focusing on impact over destination. And it's about building trust. Because when your teams, your clients, your partners, when they trust you, from a place of trust, you can build anything. So, here are some of the questions I invite you to think through when you're thinking about how to build your promise. Whether or not you know exactly where you're heading, what is the impact that you must deliver no matter what? Based on that impact, in order to arrive there, what do you need to prioritize? This helps you know where to focus, but equally importantly, where not to focus. And finally, what do you know and what don't you know? All that matters here is truth in service of building trust. For me in my business, up until the beginning of 2020, if you'd asked me what my business was, I would say, I do keynotes, I do training, I do consulting. It was very clear, but I would talk about my business in the context of deliverables, right? In terms of stuff and activities. When the pandemic hit and suddenly I didn't know how to do any of those things, I had to quickly pull my team together and focus. We had to keep each other honest and connected to an impact. So suddenly, we don't know how we're going to do training and speaking and consulting. But we did know that our impact was all around retaining, engaging, and developing talent. That was a promise we made to our clients. We knew that at all costs, we were going to have to figure out new ways to stay in the zone of delivering on that impact. And that helped informed what we needed to prioritize. We needed to prioritize learning, educating ourselves. How do you use Zoom? How do you run a virtual meeting? How do you engage in hybrid events? We didn't know the answers to these in the earliest days, but in order to achieve our impact, we had to prioritize learning and engaging and listening over some of the activities that we may have prioritized in the earlier days, because this was our promise to our clients. And then finally, we had to be so profoundly honest and vulnerable about what we knew and what we didn't know. We knew talent. We knew how to facilitate conversation. We knew how to listen, how to ask important questions. We didn't know yet what was going to happen with the future of work. We didn't know how to be virtual or hybrid, or how to maintain culture, or how to run a virtual meeting so that introverts and extroverts get equal playing time. Some of those details we didn't know yet, but we didn't pretend. We were incredibly honest with each other and with our clients about that. And what that meant was when we came to the table and said, hey, now we do know something. Now we have figured out some techniques to run a great virtual meeting. Our clients trusted us immediately because we had been nothing but honest and authentic the whole way. We were clear about our impact. Our impact, no matter what, is we are going to help our clients engage, retain, and develop their talent. We were clear on our priorities. We have to learn, we have to listen, we have to test, we have to figure out. And finally, we were clear in what we knew and what we didn't know. This kept our clients in the zone of trusting us and following us. And this is what you need. Whether or not you have a vision, whether or not you know exactly where you're heading, your job as a leader is to remind your teams, your peers, your clients of what impact you're here to deliver, what your priorities are, and what you know and what you don't along the way. Have answers to these 3 questions at the ready, and you will have a team that is now recharged and refortified and trusting you. They are ready to follow. And this sets you up beautifully to prepare to build your plan. Leading through change used to rely on playbooks. But in the realm of all of this uncertainty, we often don't have a playbook. And frankly, in the earliest days of the pandemic, anyone who told you they had a playbook was probably not worthy of your trust. We're in a season of leading our teams through change and uncertainty when we don't have a clear set of instructions or directions to offer. What we need here is to crowdsource a plan. And this is largely about being unbelievably reflective with your teams. And so here are some of the questions I invite you to really give some thought to. First, as we think about these past several months and even years, what are the things that have served us that we want to make sure we continue? Also, upon reflection, what are the things that we need to start to be ready to release? What are some of the activities, the rituals, the meetings that may have served us in a season, but perhaps it's time to let go of? And finally, what do we need to add? What's missing? What's next? Building our plans when we're leading through an uncertain change is all about asking the right questions and really listening, being open to a wide range of possibility. In the earlier part of 2020, when I pulled my team together and said, "Hey, team, we need to figure out a plan together. Let's think about how we've spent our past few years together and focus on what are the practices and the processes and the rituals that we absolutely want to continue." And we agreed that in the early part of the pandemic, we needed to really stick with our regular team meetings as well as our client check ins. We had to make sure that at all costs, we were maintaining connection. We were maintaining a finger on the pulse of what was on people's minds, what were people's needs. And we knew that this was really an important set of conversations for us to be having. So we were going to continue regular check ins with each other and with our clients. When we thought about what it might be time to release, at least for a moment, not forever, we thought in the very beginning, a lot of what we had done previously was webinars and info sessions. We really did a lot as an organization to show up as experts. But in the earlier part of the pandemic, we didn't know yet where our expertise was going to lie. We had to move from a place of showing up with answers to showing up with questions and curiosity. And so for the first couple months of the pandemic, we stopped running webinars. We stopped running information sessions because we had to reinvest in our own learning, our own education. And by learning, I don't just mean from the experts. It wasn't just about watching TED Talks or training sessions, but it was very much about learning from our clients. We needed to ask and listen and learn. What's your experience been like since you've gone remote? What are your challenges, your concerns, your anxieties? We are here exclusively to learn. And so for a short season, we released the need to show up as experts and teachers, and we just showed up as listeners and learners. What did we need to add? We needed to add opportunity for our clients to be connecting with each other. Remember, we were clear on our impact. Our impact was to help clients retain, engage, and develop their talent. And in order to achieve that impact in this season, as we thought about our next steps, as we are continuing to meet and connect, as we are releasing the need to be experts, what we needed to add were forums for our clients to actually come together and engage with each other and share their needs and their experiences and their questions. And that ended up being a huge shift in our business. It ended up becoming the foundation for some of the group coaching programs that we now run. So, by letting go of the need to have a playbook, the need to know all the answers, by being willing to lean into testing and trying and adding new things, this is how we learned to move forward in the pandemic. This is how we figured out our plan. It wasn't about needing to know, it was about being willing to step back and reflect and ask and listen and experiment. And so I invite you to do the same. As you reflect on your past couple of years, you have figured things out. Things you know you've figured out, and in some cases, things you may not even realize you've figured out along the way. So I invite you to pull your team together and have some conversations. Ask and answer some of these questions. What are the things that you've done that have been serving you, that at least for a season you want to continue? Maybe even dial up or amplify. What are the things you've been doing that it may be time to release? Maybe you started a daily stand up meeting in the early days of the pandemic to make sure everyone was staying on track, but that meeting has served its purpose. Maybe people are ready to take that time back. Maybe that is something you can release. Maybe you have been asking your team to deliver daily updates or to complete a dashboard or to continuously put slides together so that you have all of your data in one place. And maybe those practices served you for a time, but maybe also it's time to release them. There are no right or wrong answers here. The point is, it's important to check in with your team around what's serving them and what isn't. And then finally, as you free up some space, as you think about your promise, that impact that you are here to deliver, and you think about the distance between where you are now and where that impact lies, what's missing? What do you need to add? What is a new practice, a new ritual, a new conversation? What's a new experience you need? What's a new person you need to meet? What's a new skill you need to build? What do you need to add to your current world in order to move you closer to delivering on your promise? So now at this stage of the game, we have hopefully refilled and refueled our tanks. So our humanity and our energy have returned to full stores. We have articulated a promise that is clear and compelling and authentic. We've earned people's trust. People understand which direction we're heading in, and they are hopefully excited to follow us. We have started to build a plan, which is not about a playbook. It's not about knowing the answers, but it's about being incredibly reflective of everything that these past few years have taught us. And we have started to make decisions, intelligent decisions, based on those reflections. These are the first three key elements of successfully leading through change and uncertainty. But you'll notice that as I talk about the plan, I continuously use the phrase in this season. What will we continue in this season? What must we release in this season? And that's because nothing we decide here is permanent. Nothing we decide here is forever. Something that will serve us right now may end up not serving us in a week or a month or a year. And we always need to be checking back in. We always need to know how things are going. And that's where the fourth element comes in, the importance of keeping a finger on the because there is no there. We are not heading towards a destination anymore. Change has become our new normal, and we need to be able to lead through it continuously. We need to evolve as change leaders, and there is no achievement, there is no ending. There is only dialogue and connection. And that is what this fourth piece of the puzzle is really about. So here are some of the questions that it is so important for you to ask and answer for yourselves and with your team. What's working really well that we may want to repeat or amplify? This is about testing something new, trying it out. For me, in the early days with my team, it was about, hey, we don't really feel comfortable running a webinar right now, but what if we just ran an open listening session where we just showed up and invited some clients and asked a few questions? We had never done that before, but we have to try it. For us, that worked incredibly well. It was appreciated. It was what was needed in the moment. And so we kept on keeping on. And that is a practice we continue to this day. What will we try next? When we understand what works well, we can make tweaks. We can try again. We can try to infuse new energy, new ideas. And when something didn't work, we can pull it out. We can shift and tweak and try something totally different. And very, very critically, what must we celebrate? This is another practice we need to normalize. As leaders, we tend to be really great at setting big goals and celebrating when we get there. We hit a revenue goal, we land a new client, we've run an event in a new way. We are great at celebrating that. But what we need to get better at is celebrating all of the milestones along the way, celebrating the dumb questions people are finally willing to ask, celebrating people asking for help, celebrating testing and failing, but learning and trying something new. Celebration has to be opened up, it has to be democratized. And when we take this very agile approach to planning and learning, it helps us move into much more creative spaces than we ever had before. Prior to the pandemic, I don't even think I knew what Zoom or Teams were. I certainly had never used them. Everything I knew about running my business was about designing and delivering programs in person. And a lot of my programs in the early days of my business were designed to be delivered in full 1 or 2 day increments. So I'd show up in a room with a team and we would spend a day or two together and we would bang out a lot. And of course, when the pandemic hit, I learned quickly you cannot hold a whole team of people hostage in Zoom for 8 hours. It simply defies the laws of humanity. And so I had to try something completely different. And I ended up taking a 1 day leadership program that I had run a million times, and I broke it into a modulated program. It's now become the program that I call Simple, and it's a program for new leaders that runs over 6 modules. And what I ended up learning was this is actually so much better than the in-person program. Because by delivering it over 6 modules versus in a single day, it gives people time to learn a concept and go back to their day job and practice it and learn and test and try and come back together with their cohorts and share ideas before learning the next concept and going back and trying that. And now that we are emerging from the pandemic and being together in person is coming back, I'm actually keeping that program as a modulated experience because it taught me something new about the importance of action and practice and building connection and community with a cohort over time. So that was something that I had to try from a place of necessity, but it taught me something incredibly important about how to really move leaders forward. And if you take this opportunity to think differently about what you've always known and how you've always done things, and you try and you test and you see what you can learn, it helps us to figure out what do we want to repeat and what do we want to amplify. And what do we want to try next time? Do we want to add a 7th module? Do we want to build a small in-person component? For your business, those questions may be completely different. But it's all about paying attention. Wow, that modulated cohort experience was so much richer. And here's why. And I let that inform how I moved forward. That was me keeping a finger on the pulse. And this piece about celebrating, this is where I want you to ask yourselves, leaders, what are the behaviors that you want to see in your teams? What are the things that you want to recognize and reward? And by reward, I don't necessarily mean financially, but I mean, what are the behaviors that you want to positively reinforce? By saying things like, John, that was a great question. I am so glad you were brave enough to ask. Or, hey, Cinda, I love that you just blocked out your calendar for 30 minutes so you could go take a learning course or you could go meet somebody new in another part of the company. Simply by recognizing and honoring behaviors that are going to move us towards our impact, we start to reinforce them. These are the key elements to keeping a finger on the pulse of what's happening. So just to recap, once again, what does it take to lead ourselves and our teams through uncertainty and change? It starts with your people. If your people are not running on a full tank, you will not get their creativity. You will not get their engagement. You will not get their trust. Make sure your people, including you, know what they need, have what they need, and are comfortable asking and supporting each other. Next, focus on your promise. You may not know exactly what the destination looks like, but who will you be no matter what? What can your team count on? What can your clients count on? What is the impact you're here to deliver? What is the truth? And what can they count on no matter what? Next, build your plan. You don't have to know all the answers. It's not your job as a leader to know the answers. It's your job to cultivate them, to find them, to manifest them through actions and practices and testing and learning and staying open and agile. And finally, it's keeping a finger on the pulse. It's keeping that dialogue open. It's watching and understanding what's working and asking the team what's next. And it's most importantly, staying in a zone of celebration. We have to celebrate the things that we've done, even the things that have failed us, because they've taught us if we've stayed humble. When your people are fortified, your promise is clear, your plan is agile, and your pulse is on point, you will successfully lead your teams and yourselves through uncertainty and change every time. And I close with this one important reminder. We've talked a lot about uncertainty. Uncertainty has become a significant presence in our world, and it's not going away. But uncertainty has another side, and that is possibility. When things are certain, when the outcome is defined, there's only one way. But in the face of uncertainty, which we can allow to show up as anxiety, we have to remember that equally it presents significant possibility. I want to thank you so much for showing up here today. I want to invite you to visit my website, leadabovenoise.com, to connect with me, to submit any of your questions. It would be my incredible honor and pleasure to find the answers. And what I promise you is that if I don't know, I will find it. But thank you once again for the gift of your attention and your time. I am Rachel Cook, and this has been Leading Through Uncertainty and Change.
Thanks for joining us for this virtual bonus session. We hope you enjoyed it. Learn more about InflectraCON, our live, in-person conference from April 19th through the 21st, 2023 in Washington, D.C. by visiting InflectraCON.com. Stay tuned for more great content, news, and events from Inflectra. Learn more at inflectra.com/company.